Chapter 21. The future is not random. The future is often described as uncertain, chaotic, or unknowable. This description is partially true. Specific events cannot be predicted with precision. Timelines fluctuate. Outcomes vary. Yet beneath this uncertainty, patterns persist. The future is not random. It is constrained. This chapter examines why outcomes repeat, why collapse is predictable in retrospect, and why trajectories can be anticipated without forecasting events. Uncertainty versus indeterminacy. Uncertainty describes lack of information. Indeterminacy describes absence of structure. The future is uncertain. It is not indeterminate. Systems operate within constraints that shape possible outcomes. While specific expressions vary, the range of outcomes remains bounded. Confusing uncertainty with randomness obscures structure. Why patterns repeat across eras. History appears to repeat itself not because humans fail to learn, but because underlying structures remain unchanged. Different technologies, ideologies, and cultures express the same configurations. Power concentrates. Responsibility diffuses. Capacity erodes. Correction follows. The language changes. The pattern persists. The future mirrors structure more than intention. The illusion of novelty. Novelty creates distraction. New tools, new narratives, and new contexts give the impression that old constraints no longer apply. Systems assume exemption through innovation. Innovation alters expression. It does not alter constraint. Novelty delays recognition of familiar misalignment. Correction arrives wearing new clothes. Why forecasts fail and trajectories don't. Forecasts attempt to predict events. Trajectories describe direction. Events depend on countless variables. Trajectories depend on configuration. Forecasts fail because they seek precision. Trajectories succeed because they describe tendency. Systems moving toward misalignment will encounter correction regardless of timing. The exact moment varies. The direction does not. The future is consequence accumulation. The future emerges from accumulated consequence. Small decisions compound. Minor violations add up. Deferred corrections intensify. By the time outcomes appear dramatic, the underlying configuration has been shaping them for years. The future is not sudden. It is cumulative. Why surprise is a symptom? Surprise indicates lack of visibility. When systems are surprised by outcomes, it signals that internal signals were ignored or unavailable. Surprise is not evidence of randomness. It is evidence of blindness. Systems that maintain internal feedback are rarely surprised. The predictability of correction. Correction follows misalignment predictably. It begins subtly. It escalates when ignored. It concentrates when deferred. This escalation pattern is consistent. Systems that experience correction as chaos failed to recognize earlier signals. The future announced itself quietly. The role of denial and future shock. Denial distorts anticipation. Systems deny limits, dismiss warning signs, and rationalize drift. They assume stability until failure becomes unavoidable. This denial makes future outcomes feel abrupt. Shock arises from delayed recognition, not from randomness. The difference between planning and preparation. Planning attempts to control outcome. Preparation builds capacity to respond. The future resists control. It responds to preparation. Systems that prepare structurally adapt to change. Systems that plan narratively collapse under deviation. Preparation acknowledges uncertainty. Planning assumes predictability. Why long-term thinking is rare. Long-term thinking conflicts with immediate incentives. Rewards are short-term. Pressure is immediate. Accountability is local. Long-term consequence feels abstract. Systems sacrifice future stability for present comfort. The future arrives anyway. When this is ignored. When systems treat the future as random, they rely on luck. They gamble on exemption. They react rather than adapt. They mistake survival for alignment. Correction arrives without warning. The future a structural mirror. The future reflects current configuration. What is deferred now appears later as constraint. What is avoided now returns as correction. What is externalized now re-enters at scale. The future is a mirror, not a mystery. Why optimism and pessimism both fail. Optimism assumes favorable outcomes. Pessimism assumes unfavorable ones. Both rely on expectation rather than structure. The future responds to configuration, not attitude. Hope does not stabilize systems. Fear does not prevent collapse. Alignment does. Predicting without forecasting. Understanding structure allows anticipation without prediction. Systems can identify where capacity is exceeded, where responsibility is diffused, where feedback is blocked, where constraints are violated. From these indicators, direction becomes clear. Timing remains uncertain. Outcome range narrows. The cost of treating the future as external. When the future is treated as external force, systems abdicate agency. They prepare to react rather than to align. They wait for events rather than examine configuration. This abdication transfers control outward. The future is not external. It is emerging. Why the future feels hostile. The future feels hostile to systems that avoid correction. Constraints appear unfair. Outcomes feel imposed. Pressure seems aggressive. This hostility is misinterpreted. The future enforces what the present ignored. The quiet predictability of endurance. Endurance is predictable. Systems that respect limits, distribute responsibility, and maintain feedback persist. Systems that violate these conditions collapse. The future favors coherence. This is not preference. It is structure. Anticipation without anxiety. Understanding that the future is constrained reduces anxiety. It replaces fear with orientation. It shifts attention from speculation to configuration. Systems stop asking what will happen. They ask what must remain intact. The role of choice in shaping the future. Choice influences configuration. While outcomes cannot be controlled, alignment can be maintained. Systems choose whether to examine themselves, redistribute load, and respect limits. These choices shape trajectory. The future responds. The false comfort of fatalism. Fatalism treats collapse as inevitable. It absolves responsibility. It discourages examination. It frames failure as destiny. Collapse is not destiny. It is delayed correction. Closing constitutional statement. The future is not random. It is shaped by constraint, configuration, and consequence. Events may surprise. Outcomes should not. Systems that understand structure do not predict the future. They prepare for it. End of chapter 21.